Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Aristocrats Soccer Podcast. I am a lone host today. We have Dave Harris is out doing whatever he does for his job, and Marion Cole is making workout videos on Instagram. So it's just me and the guest, and our guest is Matt Mahoney, who recently signed with the Colorado Springs Switchbacks. So welcome to the podcast, Matt.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So what brought about this move? We were just talking off camera to Colorado, and obviously the elevation there is tough. You just recently got there for preseason. So what brought this move about for you?
Yeah, so being in SAC the last 2 years, my contract was up, so they didn't offer me a new contract. So I kind of got lucky. My coach out here now, Brendan Burke, was my coach in Philly my first 2 years. So when he got the job out here, he called me up and he's like, "We want you out here," and it happened honestly pretty quick. There weren't many other options at the time for me, so I was actually really fortunate that he called, and I jumped on it really quick. And yeah, it kind of happened within a week, and I got out here 2 weeks ago, getting acclimated, getting ready for preseason in a couple of weeks, and ready to go.
How's the squad shaping up? Are you excited? I've seen a few of your signings. I know Steve. I'm gonna mess it up. Steve Echeverria. I'm gonna mess up his last name, but we trained with him this offseason. But how are things looking? Have you spoken about whether you're gonna be kind of a center back or right back?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. It could be either at this point. I know we signed a couple of center backs as well as an outside back here already just for depth, but I think it's looking good. Yeah. I know Brendan, he brought in, I want to say probably like at least 10 guys since he's signed and done a couple trades and things like that. And I know Colorado in the past couple of years, I think last year only had 2 wins. So he got in and he tried to get into work right away to try to bring his guys in and kind of change the culture of what the club is and things like that. So it's definitely looking up. And especially with the 32-game season this year, it'll be hard to only have 2 wins. So hopefully it can only go better from here. But yeah, I'm super excited. Steve's my roommate. He's in the other room, so he's probably hearing me now. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not too bad so far.
No, he messed up he heard my pronunciation errors. But what is we'll have to get him on at the end of the episode. Steve's a great guy as well. But so this new stadium that the club is building, have they said when it'll be ready exactly? But because it looks sweet.
Yeah, so the 360 video they put out is sweet. In terms of when we're getting in, I think March 1st is when the turf will be completely laid down and we'll be able to actually train on there. So since we're starting February 18th, small group, we're going to have to kind of find somewhere to train. I don't know exactly where that'll be at. But then once we get in March 1st, since with COVID and all the protocols, we're not really going to be able to use the indoor stuff yet in like the locker rooms, I'm pretty sure. And I'm not sure if they're done yet. But hopefully by like April and things when hopefully COVID starts to loosen up a little bit, we'll be able to get in there. But yeah, it's going to be looking sweet. Hopefully when fans come back in, and hopefully we're doing well, performing, winning games, we'll actually be able to have, a good, crowd, which would be sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at those stadium renderings and a lot of these new ones. I don't know if you saw the one USL Rhode Island was really, really cool, which I think Rhode Island's championship, I believe, when in a couple of years they come in. The stadium renderings, they look awesome. And it's so great to see like these soccer specific stadiums at a size that we could fill out in USL, whether championship or League One. And I think it's really helped the sport grow in this country. So I'm jealous. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Madison has a great setup as well, but you guys it's a brand new 8,000. I think you said it was. So it should be great. I'm looking forward to watching games this year from you. But I guess one thing that we'll just touch on, since it's kind of the sign of the times, there's so much going on in terms of small group training or individual gym sessions, and it happens for us as athletes in these winter months anyway. But it seems like the off season is just 7 months now. So what do you do specifically in this time where you don't have a team to train with every day? So what's going into your training?
Yeah, so we'll jump back to when I was back in New York. We'll talk about our net league, your little background we got going on there.
Yes. For those that don't know, and Scotty and Corby and Dylan, if they're listening, the YouTube viewers, the background is our net training facility, which your brothers work at, your mom works at, we train at every day. It's a great setup, but go on.
No, but exactly. So now, I mean, how many years have we been doing this? We were talking about it right before I left. I was in college still, so I must have been 18 or 19, and you're 5 years older than me. So it was early when you were still playing in Ireland. We started training there.
The first time.
The first time. And then, so this off season has been really different. I mean, when we're in there, we're going to train. Like we're actually very fortunate that we're able to go in there, but it's masks up all the time. I mean, we got yelled at, even when we weren't even the ones causing problems, just for making sure we have our masks on. But yeah, I was actually fortunate this year because being where we were, like having access to the gym, so I was still able to do all my stuff, being able to go train with you guys, it was perfect. The one thing lacking though was like the pickup, being able to go somewhere and play with other pros. That's been the one thing lacking, but it's been lacking for everybody. So I think, everyone will kind of be on the same playing field when the season comes around. And that's why I'm very fortunate to be out here now training with some of the guys on the team and get going, just kind of get ready to get back into like a routine and kind of normal training.
Yeah. The pickup, over the years, we did get like some 3v3s, but we never got like a 5-a-side. And that is the one thing that really you miss.
Well, we know why, because the net charges us.
Once it's over 6 people. We actually don't tell them, but today we had, I think it was 9 people, and I thought for sure we were getting kicked off. We had 9 people.
Joe's watching this right now. He's gonna cut it off next time.
He actually was in there, and we waited to start until he kind of left. It was a little funny. We were trying to, but yeah, I mean, these sessions are great. But I think so much of that we build in the off season is the gym work. And I know you're big into that. And I think it's difficult for me as a player. It's difficult to kind of keep it going throughout the season. So I really need that good base. And if I have an off season where I'm not doing enough gym work, I really struggle throughout the season. So how do you kind of balance that? You don't want to get too buff and too big, but then also you want to maintain throughout the season. How do you do that?
So honestly, it's tough as well because it happens a lot as well because the season is 9 months. And now, especially with the shorter season, we're still trying to get a lot of games in. So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I still try to get in twice a week. But like I like doing like the squatting and deadlifting, things like that, which you're able to do in the off season and kind of tax your body a little more that you don't get to do too much in season. But I'm similar to you. Like I like doing that in the off season to kind of build up lost muscle. And just like gain like work capacity and just fitness like that. And then try to maintain best throughout the season. But you're right, it's tough. I mean, we put a lot of miles on our legs playing 2-3 games a week. And kind of the stigma with us soccer players anyways is that, I think it's changing a little now, but in terms of not liking to lift, like just kind of running, things like that, the importance I think of strength training is emerging a little bit. But yeah, I'll be honest, it is tough if you're playing 2-3 games a week to maintain.
Yeah, the toughest part for me is especially when it's in the heat and I'll lose like 6, 7, 8 pounds in a game. And you have to drink a lot and get your fluids, get your nutrition after. But I find that from March when we normally start and from to October, I lose like 5, 6 pounds. And I still, like, I've been playing forever. And I still can't like figure out
the 30 curve.
On the over 30 club. Yeah. I still can't figure out exactly how to do it. Like I try to do protein shakes but you see a lot of guys, like sometimes they'll try to take creatine because it's more of like keep the weight on, but it isn't a difficult thing for us. And that's a lot of times what teams do is they try to test, or at least smart teams, they try to test your strength, your fitness, both at the beginning of the year for your initial fitness and then also towards the end. Cause it is, here's a question that I would have, and I've just kind of just thought of this. If you had your ideal training layout for a week, most teams, you'll train 5 times. You'll have a Sunday off and you'll play on a Saturday. If you don't have a 3-game week, what would those 5 sessions look like for you in terms of gym work and on the field work?
Yeah. So honestly, so if we're playing like a Saturday, for example, we just played, I prefer like going in the next day, just getting like a regen session Sunday, off Monday. And then I'd still like to lift twice a week. I know we actually, when I played in Philly, we had a good kind of routine to this because we were able to use the Union's facilities and things like that. And Sac, we tried lifting twice a week, but it wasn't as consistent. But I would do like full body exercises like Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday. So Tuesday would be like more strength based, like a little harder. And then like Wednesday would be the hardest day on the field, but no lifting. And then Thursday kind of just explosive, like quick stuff, full body still. And then you get that Friday like easy session before the game, and then Saturday go. That's what I would ideally like, but obviously that's impossible when you throw in a Wednesday game. Then that kind of throws it off, and then you're not lifting for a week. So when you lift again, you're sore again, and there's kind of no winning. So it's tough.
It is. Do you think you would benefit if instead of being on the pitch 5 times, we were only on the pitch 3 times or 4 times maybe? Or no?
Honestly, no. I would prefer to be on the field, and I think I think the most important part anyways is if people are able to stay healthy and stay fit for 90 minutes, then if they're able to get by without the gym stuff, then at the end of the day, I mean, the most important part is to be able to play, right? The gym stuff kind of just helps you prevent injury and last throughout the season. But if you don't have a problem with that and you're able to stay kind of in shape, I'd rather be on the field 5 times a week with the ball, just even if it's technical. That's just me. And I'm like a gym rat, like I like doing all that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I know you are. You got that perfect gym form with every exercise. I'm a little jealous. But the reason why I asked that is we've had this conversation at Greenville last season, and we had a lot of older guys, and we'd get a lot of days off, like pitch days off. Guys would be in the gym doing whatever they wanted. Like we had a good strength and conditioning coach. But I found, and what we incorporated well was days where we weren't doing like contact training. We were doing only like pattern play, passing drills, crossing, finishing, things like that. And I felt like it kind of saved our bodies towards the end. Whereas other teams that I've been on, like Tuesday, you're doing small sided hard. Wednesday, you said like is the toughest section of the week. Thursday, you're going into your tactics, but still 11v11. Friday, you're still doing and every day is combative training. And for me, maybe it's because I'm older, but I think if I only had 2 or 3 days of like tough training and then I did 2 days of easier training, I think my body would adapt better.
I agree. I think you need to find a good balance between making sure you're staying fit throughout the week, especially for guys that are not playing, and then being able to rest everybody else, but make sure they're getting touches so they're still sharp for the weekend. It's a tough balance. So I'm glad I'm not really the coaches that have to go through that every week.
Yeah, I have no interest in trying to make a training schedule for a squad because you're like you said, the point you bring out about not playing, which I mean everybody has been in to some degree, whether it's on the bench or not. But when you're not playing, you're like, give me a good session. I want to do 11v11 even. And then the guys
can't do that.
And half the team is like, no, I don't want to do that. I've just played 90 minutes on the weekend. But let's transition a bit into this past couple of years at Sacramento, which is such a big club in the USL Championship. For those who aren't aware, it's probably one of the bigger ones. Your MLS is coming 2023, 22.
Yeah, 2 more years.
Yeah. So what was it like to play for a big club like that? And how did you find you had a decent number of appearances, but how did you find that balance between I'm playing 3 games in a row and then the next week I'm not playing, and how did that affect your game?
Yeah, so going back to 2019, it was definitely a big leap in my pro career in terms of fan base, like going against other guys that were older, because obviously you have to steal my first 2 years. You get like the MLS guys that come down, but it's also you get a lot of academy guys coming up, so your trainings are more often than not with younger guys, and it's not a full team. It's not a full squad. Like we had like 12 guys signed, I'm pretty sure, for the Bethlehem when I was there. But then going to a full team where you've got guys that have played at higher levels. Like we had a guy that played, Deco Kenyon played in the Prem in his prime. Other guys that came from like Europe, played in World Cups in 2010, things like that. So it was just a very kind of different pace. Like the play was the play. It was fine like that. But just kind of managing, especially when I went in my first year, I didn't play a game until my 10th game. I don't think it was. And that was just like coach issues and things like that with myself, but that, I mean, like it happens with everybody's career. But then I went for a good little run, and then changing coaches for 2020, but obviously COVID kind of screwed that up. But honestly, it was probably the best move I could have had in terms of going somewhere in the USL, because I got to see kind of both ends, going from no fans to like Sac was fantastic. The fan base, I think my first game there was over like 10,000 fans. The stuff they do in the community, how the team looks after you, like it's obviously one of the best in the USL. So I'm very grateful that I got to, experience that for 2 years. And it definitely has taught me a lot in my pro career.
Yeah, I think it's something every player needs to do at some point, is go into one of these big clubs where there's so much attention on it. And I think of like an Indy 11 in the NASL. I think of Phoenix. I think of Tampa Bay. And I think it really changes your perspective on U.S. soccer, because when you're with Steel or a smaller club, I don't want to mention any names, and around USL that don't get as many fans, you don't really feel like a professional. You feel like, I get paid, but no one cares what I do.
Exactly.
It's great that you had that experience. What were some things, any specific moments that really stand out to you in a good way from your time in Sacramento?
Yeah. So, I finally got in a good run. We played New Mexico. I want to say 2019. It was in like the first week of June. I scored my first goal in that game for Sac, which was nice. And then we were playing San Jose in Open Cup on the Wednesday. And it was just like, that was my first time kind of playing Obviously, I played against MLS guys when we were with Union 2, now Union 2, old Bethlehem Steel. But it was different kind of in an open cup setting. San Jose Stadium is amazing to play on, perfect field. Like I was playing against like Wondolowski, like leading goal scorer in MLS. So it was just like an unreal experience. Because I myself, like I came from college 4 years, kind of like you went to college. I didn't go overseas, so I've been playing the USL, now going my 5th year. So to be able to do that and compete, and I think we lost the game 3-2, but we were up 2-1. And to get that experience was like a really just amazing moment in my career, to be able to say that, I competed well against MLS guys and was able to like hold my own, which most people never get the opportunity. So it was cool.
Yeah, it's always a great experience to see those like Premier League, MLS, national team players and getting to taste. And so from your experience against, I know it's only one experience with the Earthquakes, but what do you think the biggest differences between USL Championship and MLS would be then in terms
it's
of
like a little bit speed of play, but honestly, there's a lot of guys in the USL, I think technically that could do it compared to guys in the MLS, but like their brains and how they work. I feel like that's always the difference between like the levels. There's always technical guys, but in terms of just like how smart they are, where they are on the field, like how quick they play 1 and 2 touch. I think that's like a huge difference. I mean, we were chasing the ball. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of possession for most of the game, kind of countering. So you see how quick the game actually is, and how like upstairs they're kind of knowing where they're playing the ball before it gets to them, and all the things like you try to learn and teach yourself when you're young. To be able to experience that was very like eye-opening.
I think it's such one of my favorite experiences was playing both against Burnley and against Stoke, and I guess also Newcastle, was those kind of Premier League games. It was always wasn't always a first team, but it was like a mix of guys who weren't playing, guys coming off injury, and it just like you're like, holy crap, these guys are so good. But then at the end of the game, the score was like we lost to Burnley 2-1, we lost to Stoke 4. I think Stoke was 4-0, and then Newcastle was 2-0. But you walk off and you're like, wait a minute. Yes, they are unbelievable players, but you're like, if we didn't make this, we didn't switch off here, or if they didn't stick one in the top corner there, like we're even with them, and we can definitely compete. So I think it's something that you, as a player, you draw on those experiences, and then you go back to your training, kind of what we were talking about in the offseason. You're like, all right, this Wondolowski's movement here. Hey, I don't know, whatever specific thing, maybe he makes a really good first movement to the first post. I have to be more switched on to that, and it really improves your game. But do you have any specific example of something Wondolowski did? We'll get Wondolowski since you're a defender.
Honestly, exactly what you said. Like obviously he's towards the end of his career. He's not super athletic anymore, not making big runs in behind. But like in the box, like that's how he made his career. Like making those quick little movements in. So you always need to know, like as a center back, where he is and where he's going. And if you turn off and don't know where he is for 1 second, I mean, he's already put the ball like in the back of the goal. So like he's not going to beat you with pace. Like honestly, the way San Jose obviously plays a style of soccer that nobody else in the U.S. does in terms of how they defend and things like that. But like going forward, he could be not in the game, not touch the ball for 20 minutes, and then like inside the 6, he taps one in and goal.
Yeah.
They win 1-0. Yeah.
He's a pure poacher.
A prime example, poacher. Yeah. A typical line.
Yeah. So kind of going off topic a little bit, but when you were at Sacramento, you had a little Instagram or YouTube series called Tasty Tuesday. I would be remiss not to mention this.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
So I was lucky enough, every week I had it scheduled. I'll be like, all right, Mahoney and his roommates have Tasty Tuesday coming. Let's see what we got. It's like chocolate covered pancakes or whatever. You guys would make the most ridiculous meals. So first question is, I guess, introduce your roommates. I know what they are, but introduce them to the guests. And also, what was your favorite kind of dish that you served, and how did you guys come up with this idea? How did the club come up with the idea?
So I'll give my shout outs to the Stanford boys, Drew Scondrich and Sam Werner, for for joining me in the Tasty Tuesdays. Honestly, so when COVID hit, we played our first game, and then obviously we stopped. We couldn't do anything, and that was like the height of the fear and everything. So we didn't leave our apartment at all. I mean, you know what it's like. The whole country does, like, and so things got super weird. I mean, 3 guys hanging out in an apartment. Like, what do you expect? So actually, someone from the club brought something up, like if we could do like some funny videos or something like that. And I want to say, so Drew's a big baker. Drew likes baking a lot. So I want to say either he thought of the idea or somebody brought it up, and Drew was kind of the pioneer of it. And so one day, like, we sat down and and we literally we made our desserts, and in the beginning, like they were kind of mature, like normal conversation we'd have. We would rate them at the end. But then like each week we wanted to spice it up, and like we were wearing just ridiculous like outfits and things like that. So it was honestly very fun. Like I'm not gonna lie. Not best for the soccer diet, but that's all right. In terms of best one, oh my god, I'm not even sure that's possible. I know Drew's a big fan of it was chocolate chip banana bread. That was delicious. But anything peanut buttery or chocolate that we made along the way was just, I mean, my favorite. Fantastic.
I love some peanut butter and chocolate, but it's great that you guys made the most of a kind of shitty situation for everyone. And a lot of people around the country were stuck at their home and hoping, and if they're alone and you're just going stir crazy, but it was good you guys had roommates, or you had two roommates that you got on well with. What is it like for you? You're on your third club. You're only 25 years old, but you're on your third club, and this will be your fifth season, right?
Season,
yeah. This coming season will be your fifth. So what is it like for you with the relationships that you made along the way, and like how do you keep those relationships, or is it more like, all right, I'm in Colorado next year, I'm gonna be friends with Stevie and this guy, and I'm not gonna talk to Drew anymore, or I'm not gonna talk to James Chambers anymore back in Bethlehem, or how is it for you? Yeah. I mean, every player is different. I've heard many different perspectives on it.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that, because well, first off, I'll give a shout out to James Chambers. I don't know if this is knowledge yet, but he'll be out here in Colorado as an assistant coach. It should be announced soon, so we'll keep that.
Breaking news on the Aristocrats podcast.
But it's coming out soon. But yeah, honestly, that was probably one of the toughest parts about leaving Sacramento. I was very fortunate the 2 years there. Whatever happened on the field was on the field, but the guys off the field were amazing. I've got some friendships there that hopefully I'll have forever, and saying bye to some of them knowing I won't see them every day kind of sucks. And I'm sure you've had similar interaction with guys over in Ireland, like how often you're going to see them. And like for me, I mean, Sacramento's across the country, like how often am I going to go there? And with the way the USL split up now, like the odds of me seeing any of them are very, very thin. So yeah, it is what it is. Like obviously with social media, you're able to stay in contact with them and things like that. But in terms of like making new friends, it is what it is now. A lot of these guys I'm fortunate already to know or have played against on Colorado, so it's kind of been a smooth transition. Coaching staff I know, so now sad to call myself kind of a USL vet a little bit, get into the USL veteran stage, but it's just part of the game, and unfortunate that it happens, but you just gotta kind of make new friends and go from there.
Yeah, I do find it. I find it's a tough situation, but it's also a great situation, because if you're just a 25-year-old moving to Colorado, you probably have no built-in friends. Yeah. But you're lucky enough to have 23 or how many are on the roster that maybe you're not gonna be friends with all of them, of course, but you have 23 guys that you can be like, hey, you want to grab a coffee? Hey, you want to go for a hike? And 3 or 4 will say yes. Yeah. So it's a lot easier for us in that regard, but it's also tough because you meet all these great people, and then you're like, well, I'm just gonna follow your life on Instagram for now until I'm 95.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's definitely an interesting life that we live. I'll say that. Yeah. But what is something from Sacramento that you took off the field, completely off the field, not related to players, that you, as a New Yorker, you were like, wow, California does it right?
Does it right?
Or wrong.
Right or wrong? Well, obviously, California is very different from what New York is. But I'll be honest and say I was in the one spot in California that was kind of most like the East Coast. Like it wasn't down south where they've got the palm trees and the beaches. It wasn't San Francisco where it's a very kind of just like liberal hippie type of area, I guess. Sacramento had your hippies out there, but honestly, one thing is kind of like open-mindedness, I guess. It's a different vibe out in California. The East Coast has this bad rep for being fast-paced, rude people, whatever kind of goes along with New York, where we're from. And I met a lot of nice people out in Sacramento that were very open-minded, different perspectives. And that might just be because it was my first experience moving far away from the East Coast. But I just honestly say that just like open-mindedness, different perspective on life and how things are, a little slow pace, like enjoy nature, big nature thing, like hiking, and stuff like that. I became like, it was enjoyable to do. But yeah, that was probably the biggest one for me.
Yeah. Sadly, this past year we had no choice. We had to go on hikes. Whether you like hiking or not,
you had to.
You can bake and hike. But I enjoyed it.
In the USL contracts, I'm pretty sure things like you can do, man, like go to the grocery store, hike. Those are the things.
Let's actually touch on that, because this is a hilarious topic for people who don't know. But when they redid after COVID, we had to sign like an amended, I forgot what it was called exactly, but it was basically like an amended contract where they said all the things we were outlined to be able to do, and all the things, anything that wasn't on this list, we were not allowed to do. So the hiking was one. You were allowed to go on walks,
haircuts.
You were allowed to go to the grocery store. You were allowed. It was very like basic things, like things that weren't on there that you're like, are you kidding me? Like fishing was not on there. Guys were like, at Greenville, we have a couple guys who love fishing, and our strength and conditioning coach loved fishing. And he's like, this is at the beginning when everybody was like, let's follow all the rules to a T. And we were like, can we go fishing? And like, we literally asked the general managers, like, can we go fishing? And coaching wasn't like, a lot of the guys do like small one-on-one. We weren't allowed to coach, but then we went to the GM and they were like, no, you guys can, like, come on. we
weren't even allowed to. They told us in SAC, we had it very strict. For example, and I don't know if this is what you had the case, but we, for example, had the apartment complex like most teams do, where you have a couple of different apartments with guys living there. So we weren't even supposed to go to another apartment in the same complex where other guys were living. But like, again, we think it's funny because then you go to training and you're training on the field with them, and you're trying to stay far apart, but realistically you're doing set pieces. Like you're going to having conversations, you're 2 feet away from each other anyways. So the rules are a bit silly at some points, but I get what you're saying. Like, okay, you can go for a hike, but can we fish? Like where's the line drawn?
Yeah. And in Greenville, we basically were told common sense. That's kind of what that was the verdict. It was like, let's use some common sense, but like, don't go out to the club, don't go to crowded restaurants. But if you want, and you want to go eat somewhere and there's no one around it, or it's outside, you can do that. Or if you want to coach and whatever. But I think it was very different team by team and also state by state, because like in Greenville, you can go to some gyms and not even wear a mask, whereas in California you can't even like drive in your car without a
seriously.
So it's just it's a different world, and it's tough because it's around the country. The rules are so different in Florida, where you have 22,000 people for the Super Bowl, and then in California, where you're not allowed to go to a gym really. So it's an interesting time for everyone, and it was also an interesting time for us as players, because we're used to. Yeah, we have playing, and we have to focus on that, but we need some way to kind of take our mind off things.
Exactly.
And this year you weren't really able, if things aren't going well,
funny because you really found yourself in what you were kind of interested in and what you did in like your spare time. Because you go to training, I mean, with the heat in Sacramento, it was like sometimes like 105, 110 during the days. So we were up training at like 7 a.m. So we get home 9, 10 in the morning. Like, what are we going to do the rest of the day? So that's where it's fortunate you got roommates. And we'd go play basketball in like in the apartment complex and things like that. But in terms of, I couldn't even imagine other guys in the country as well that you were either living by themselves and didn't have people to talk to. So I really feel for like the self-isolation, and because I know I was going crazy with 2 guys to live with. For people that are by themselves is unimaginable.
Yeah. One thing that we were offered in Greenville, which I thought was really good, was like either therapy, like a regular therapist or a sports therapist. Yeah. And I think that if guys want to utilize that, I didn't personally, but if they want to and they're in kind of a dark place, then that's, I think everyone around the country, like therapy isn't like a bad thing. I don't think. No. It's really just having a conversation with someone that you trust, that is licensed and you trust. It's the same thing as having a really good conversation with a friend. I find as a player, if I have a really bad game, if I just talk about the game with someone, like a teammate, if we were on the same team and we just have a conversation, the next morning I'm like, that wasn't as bad as I thought.
That's the thing is, like, more often not you over exaggerate in the beginning, and then once you kind of hear it out loud, you're like, all right, maybe it wasn't so bad. Well, I didn't need to over exaggerate like that, but I definitely get what you're saying.
Yeah, just had to change the lighting there for the YouTube viewers. It's getting a little dark. I thought it was going to be light out the whole time, but so they can see my beautiful face. But so let's transition again, and we'll go. One of the great things about playing is experiencing all these different teammates and all these different places and all these new things. So what was your first stop like in Bethlehem? And it was, you walk us back even to how you kind of started. I know that you went to, I think it was like an open tryout or an invite tryout with the Steel
for preseason for the Steel.
Yeah. So how did that come about?
Yeah. So I was lucky and unlucky in the respect that Temple was never on the map in terms of soccer. They're doing a little better now, but we never made the NCAA tournament. We competed, but we never won the conference. We never were anything like that. So getting drafted was going to be tough. I didn't have huge stats. Like in my senior year, I played like outside mid or something like that because they needed me to, kind of how college works. So I got fortunate that I knew the assistant. I actually did an internship with the union to complete school. I had to. So I had like a little in there where they were able to get me just to go into preseason, and obviously, I performed well enough. And kudos to Brendan, now my current coach as well, for kind of giving me the opportunity. And then my first pro game, I don't even think I was rostered for it for the first couple, because that was when, like, I want to say it was a whole roster of union players that came down in 2017. And then I didn't make my debut was in Toronto in TFC Stadium, actually. Came in with like 10 minutes to go at left back, and we ended up winning the game 1-0. And then the kid that there was a right back that was playing from the union down with us all season. I forget exactly why, he was either injured or had a knock. Our next game was at Cincinnati, which before they came into the MLS, they were getting 20+ thousand fans a game. So my first pro start was, I wanted May 11th, 2017, in front of like 25,000 plus at Cincinnati. And it was an amazing game. We ended up losing 2-1, but that was where I kind of convinced myself and the coaches that I was able to play in the USL. So that was I'll never forget that experience. And then I think I only started 4 games my first year, because then the kid came back, whatnot. But then obviously had a fantastic second year, played I think like 35 games and whatnot. So that was my steel career, and it got me over to Sacramento. And I know I'm kind of just going through my career, and I don't even remember what the question was that you asked initially. But
no, carry on. But that's, it's good insight for the people to have, because if I didn't introduce your steel career well enough, because you're a person that the first year you didn't play a lot, you had a few opportunities, you got a taste, and then an MLS2 team, for the most part, if you don't play a lot, or if they don't think you have a potential with the MLS team, they're going to release you after that first season. So you were obviously someone that Brendan rated very highly. For him to bring you back for the second year, especially being at that time you were 22, which for them is old, which it's crazy to me, but it's considered old in that kind of MLS2 realm. So that, that second year, when you played 35 games, you scored your first professional goal, you had a lot of success. What is something that you changed about your game from the first year to the second, that you really learned from those older guys, from Brendan?
Yeah, so I think the most my development in terms of soccer, the most I've developed, was from my first year to my second year, through my second year, because I think, and honestly, I'll give James Chambers a big shout out again. He was obviously our older leader at the Steel, and he taught me a ton about the duration of professional season, the intensity. Like he was playing with everyone. I was one of the older guys on the team, and the other college kids, and he was, what is he? He's probably 6, 7, 8 years older than me. I think he's 32 now, maybe. So he was playing with a bunch of young guys, and to be able to show up and bring that intensity every day, I was like, wow, I want to be like this. And so a shout out to like the Philly as well, for the Philly style in terms of, grit, like fight for everything. So I tried to bring that as well to my game. And then when I started playing my second year, it was just like, and obviously I had to transition to center back. They had another right back that came down. So fortunately I was able to go to center back and still be able to play. But like the biggest thing I think I learned was, one, how mentally draining a season can be in professional sports. Like it was 35 games, and the body was tired by the end of the season, but also how enjoyable it was to know, like, week in and week out, to be able to start and play and do something that most people don't get to enjoy. But in terms of on the field, it was just like speed of play and, dealing with like more athletic guys than you in the pros, because obviously the USL, being athletic is half the battle. It's not always the most technical guys, but there's some crazy athletes in the league. So being able to deal with them as a smaller center back, I'm only 5'11", on top of, being able to play and build out and things like that. But it was a huge growth year in terms of learning to like sustain along like a full season and things like that. So I'm definitely very grateful that I got that under my belt, and that's probably part of the reason I got to go to SAC.
I don't want to call out your parents here, because I love your parents. We've done many co-ed tournaments together. I've played with your whole family, But have they never taught you if you're 5'11", then you always say you're 6 foot, or are you just too honest?
Nah, they've never taught me that. I mean, my mom's 5'1", so my mom's 5'1". I think my dad's 5'9" or 10. But I should. I got to get on all my stats and stuff or whatever online. It's 5'11". I got to get that 6 foot in there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be true. No one's checking. Like, if you look up me on Wikipedia or whatever, they don't even have my birthday right, and I'm like 7 months younger online than I am in real life. So I'm still 29.
There you go. Hey,
just saying, I'm still 29. But yeah, it's great that you had someone like James Chambers, someone that I played against in Ireland when he was at St. Pat's. He actually beat me in a cup final with St. Pat's, and I was with Galway. It was probably the second day of my career, unfortunately. But he's a great guy. Everybody in Ireland really respected him, and I know he did really well over here in the U.S. But now that you're kind of getting to be older, not quite at that level, but what is something that you're going to tell a first-year player at Colorado in terms of the length of the season, how mentally draining it is? What is something you're going to tell them that you did and help them?
Honestly, I was fortunate as well. I lived with my sister for the 2 years in Philly. One that kept me financially stable. So shout out to the sister. We know how some USL contracts can be in your first couple of years, but
or all of your years, but
or all of your years, yeah. But especially with 2 contracts, they could be brutal. But honestly, like, I was able to get away, and I have a couple nieces and nephews that got my mind off of soccer. So we talked about, like, during the pandemic last year, being able to kind of escape and not always be thinking about soccer, which there was no really outlet. So for guys, obviously, I know it's tough now, but you need to find ways to refresh yourself. And whether that's a couple of days off where the coach gives you, where you're able to go somewhere, like enjoy nature if you like doing that, or like obviously like hang with friends or family, things like that. That's definitely something you should do, because it is 9 months is a long time, but it goes by quickly. But the ups and the downs of a season are something like I've never experienced before. You could be on your highest scoring one game, and then a week later you could be at the lowest part because you conceded a goal and you're not going to play the next game or something. So it's definitely just being like, find these little things that work for you that help you kind of refresh like your mentality. And just like, you need to show up and be able to play every day. You need to, I know people like going to bed late and dealing and stuff like that, but you got to get in a good routine. That's super important for longevity. Like going to bed early, proper nutrition, all the kind of corny stuff that people talk about actually matters as you're getting older.
Yeah, especially as you're getting older. I'll vouch for that. I feel like when I was younger, I didn't know as much, but I also could get away with a lot more. Sure. But I think we spoke about it this off season. You were like, I feel my lifts now more. Like my body is actually sore a couple days after. Whereas when you're 22, you would do the same lift and you train the next afternoon and you'd be fine. So age definitely plays a huge role in that as well. But I would say, as USL players, I think there's always something. We're not world-class players. So we're not like the even an MLS player, right? And there's always things that we lack not that we lack, but we don't get to the next level because of that. And I think the point you're bringing up is so good about getting away from the game and kind of balancing, not because I find we have guys that obsess about the game and are in the gym 24/7. They're training 24/7. They're doing all the extra work. And then you have guys that are just
good and bad. But
exactly, which is, and then you have guys that are laid back, and it's just like, oh, I'll show up to training whenever. Like, I mean, I don't want to call out like maybe island people, like just different mentalities that people have. Whereas kind of New Yorkers were like, all right, let's get to the gym 5 days a week, do this, that, and it's finding that balance. I think is so important for player development.
I agree.
I think you've got it. I think these next couple of years for you, your career is just going to take off. That's what I'm seeing. And then,
I mean, I sure hope so. You got the magic 8 ball over there. I sure hope so, man.
Dave normally has the magic 8 ball, but he's not here today, so we'll have to. I'll vouch for him.
I was telling you, I was looking forward to having the conversation with Dave. Entertaining guy, to say the least. Love that guy.
He normally comes out with some really good questions that he doesn't even tell me beforehand. He's like, that's a great question. But let's talk. We'll kind of bring it all back together, and we're both from the Hudson Valley, New York, and we trained in the off season. I'm 5 years older than you, so we didn't really play growing up. But I'm gonna quiz you. Do you remember?
Oh boy,
there was a famous game that we played in together. Famous game in my career, anyway. It might not have been famous in yours. It was with the Jersey Express. Yeah, it was in 2013. Do you remember the game?
I want to say I do remember the game, but it was against an Israeli opponent, maybe or something. Oh
Yeah.
God, I can't remember who it was or what it was for. But I remember because I was in college, and that was I think Caesar Markovich was the coach at the time, and obviously Gali was there. Gali's been there forever. Obviously, I mean they're not even a team anymore, unfortunately, Jersey Express. But no, I don't remember who was it against.
The team was Maccabi Haifa, and it's actually funny. My dad is actually walking into the room, and the only reason why I know you were playing is I scored a goal in that game, and he's like, he was talking to your dad. They were sitting next to each other, and he's like, and I guess you weren't on the field at that time, and on the audio is, oh, it's a good thing Matt wasn't in because he would have covered Jake better than that. And I've seen the goal because like on my old highlight videos and stuff.
I want to say you might have played for both teams in that game.
I played for the Israeli team
because they needed numbers, right? Yeah, now I remember.
Yeah, it was because I had been playing with the Express before that, and then I showed up that night, and they were like, me and another guy, Noah Sadawi, who both had played for the Express. We showed up, thought we were gonna play for the Express, and then it was like, oh, you're actually in the other dressing room. You're with Maccabi Haifa. I'm like, all right, and then we're just playing against our own teammates. But it was a fun night. It was definitely. It's one of those experiences that we've kind of talked about before, though, where you're playing against top players or like a really big club.
You know what? I completely forgot about that because they're obviously the best team, not one of the top two in Israel. So that was back when I was young. I must have been 17, 18, kind of like the underappreciation of that big moment and how I guess that was another eye-opening experience in my career. Like, holy crap, like I was a boy and these were men that I was playing against. So it was a huge, huge transition. And that's why it's insane to watch guys that are overseas that are 16, 17, 18 that are going and playing in the best leagues. It's unreal.
Did you ever, when you were at New York Red Bull as a kid, did you get experiences with the first team or with the USL team, or were you just at the youth level?
No, for me, before I I got cut and went to Gachi when the 16s. We didn't do much with the first team, but that was when like obviously Tyler Adams is a couple years younger than me. When he was starting to transition up, that's when the USL team became like a more pronounced and kind of like the league in general. But no, I never did.
Yeah, but growing up in that academy definitely kind of it teaches you the way. Like Tyler Adams was in the academy from age 10, so it teaches you a professional mindset that a lot of players, even me, like I grew up and I played for a good youth team, but I was never in that academy kind of setup. And it's something that we've talked about on the podcast, actually, Dave and I, is like in America, unless you're with these MLS academies, you don't have that moment where you're either with a first team coach or getting the first chance to play with train with the first team, which you didn't quite get, but it's such a big eye-opening experience. And I think part of the problem with our development in the US is in England, that happens at 16 or 15 or even 14 sometimes. And in the US, your first experience was 22. And my first experience was probably 22, 23, or whenever it was.
Imagine you start 5 years earlier, the type of growth that you could have in those years. You maybe be probably much better players, to be honest. But it's just like how the system is. Now you see less guys going to college and going through that, which I think I'm a huge advocate of going to college as well if you think maybe you'll end up in the USL check, because it made me grow as a person a lot and develop, maturely as a person. And things like that. But obviously it's not for everyone. If you're a world-class talent or even in the US at 16, you should be trying to, and like that's your goal, you should be trying to get to an MLS team and develop. But it's definitely a different track than what they do overseas, as well as I know Zlatan talked about a little bit in terms of the cost for a lot of younger players to get into. Now, I feel like a lot of academies are free now, but in terms of underprivileged locations, being able to get to those training sessions or be seen is a huge problem, because there are tons of talent in the US that don't get seen, that, if they had the right coaching, right, people watching them, that would probably be world-class players, so it's just a difference from what's going on overseas.
Yeah. And I think part of the issue is soccer is such a pay-to-play sport, whereas basketball, especially, and football, you don't really need that development early on because you don't really need to play till you're 14. Whereas basketball, there's just a playground, you play pickup. Whereas it's not as much in the US. There are places and there's cities that allow that, but it's not enough. And I think that's what we need. We need more like of the pickup, and then yes, the pay to play is also an issue, but if you can just get players passionate about the game and learning, because like in Brazil, they're not getting coached.
They play anywhere.
Yeah, they're not getting coached by Pep Guardiola or Jose Mourinho. It's just that they're playing barefoot. They're just enjoying their game. They're learning, and that's the biggest thing when I'm coaching the younger kids. I'm like, the parents are like, "What drill can we do to make them better?" And I'm like, "They just gotta play."
Just go play. That's what they think now. And obviously, there's a huge market for training kids, and parents pay a ton of money. But half the time, if the kid just loved it and they went out and just got touches, played with friends, they'll get more out of that than they would in maybe like a 30, 40 an hour minute session with us, because you don't need drills. You just got to touch the ball a ton. Like for us, we didn't have personal trainers growing up, and we were fine. It's like, this is obviously a very novel thing where people want their kids to be the best. And so getting a trainer is completely fine. It does help the kid, but more often than not, if they just want to go get touches, I feel like that's equally, beneficial than getting a trainer.
Yeah. I think a trainer has a place from the standpoint of you need to learn certain exercises, but, and I don't want to kind of cut out the market because I'm in the market. It's like, I do coach kids. I love doing it. But I think if you kind of have these exercises and then as soon as you learn them, you can do them on your own, and coach can help a little. But it's a tough thing because I love doing it. I think I like to help the kids. I like to work with the kids. And I think a big thing with those personal training, especially for like the high school age, it's the networking of the personal trainer. So like if it's you or if it's me, like we obviously have connections, people at Temple, I know people at Binghamton, and then we know people on the professional level. So if the kid is good, for instance, I'm training high school kids now, and there's one kid who I really like, and I've spoken to Tommy Moon, the assistant at Binghamton, about him. Yeah. And that's where the kind of connection comes in, and it can really be beneficial. But when you're 10 years old,
way later than where 10 years ago when they're 5, 6 years old, that doesn't matter. Like stuff like that. It's just being able to get touches.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's a balance. There's both, but I want to see the U.S. be better, and I want to see the college game improve, because I'm the same as you. I love the college game. I love the high school game too. That's a big thing for me. And you did it 1 year, 2 years? You didn't play all 4 years.
3 years actually. Freshman.
You just missed your last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but for me, the high school experience was awesome. Like we were really good. Like people went to the games at John Jay. People did really good.
You scored 1,000 goals, so that probably helps.
I scored 1,000 goals. You're welcome, Sipe. But I mean, I went to Jay and you went to Ketchum, and at that time, Ketchum we were in the same school district, but Ketchum was poor and John Jay was very good. So my experience is very different probably than even if you played all 4 years. Yeah. But now with the academies coming in, and you're not allowed to play high school soccer, you have to pick one or the other. And I'm like, wait a minute, can't you just make it work? But then at the same time, you look at, if you want to develop like a Pulisic or like a Tyler Adams, which is the 1%, not even the 1%, the 0.0001%.
Yeah.
The high school game doesn't help it. The college game doesn't help it, because you're only really allowed to play 3 months of the year, and the rest you're limited. But I'm interested to see from your perspective going to Temple. I mean, Temple and Binghamton were kind of similar schools, mid-major, pretty good, but not amazing. Yeah. What is something you would change about the college kind of atmosphere, the training, the setup? What would you do?
I mean, that's where to even start, to be honest. But obviously, I'm an advocate for obviously length. I know discussions of lengthening the season to the spring, and I know actually they're playing the spring seasons now because of COVID. So it's proof that they could probably make it work if they elongated the season. But I think now looking back now, how much time I lost getting touches on a ball in the spring season, because you spend more time in the gym. So for example, my sophomore, junior year, we were at 6 a.m. lifts every morning. Lift for an hour, and then afternoon sessions we'd have maybe like conditioning, but we were only able to touch the ball 2-3 times a week. So we're it's equivalent in terms of we're touching the soccer ball 3 times a week, and then on top of that lifting 3 times a week. So you're dead. So you're not doing anything on the weekends, but it's not like you're training for an hour, so you don't get to work on any of your weaknesses. You're in there, you're playing pickup because you just want to play. It's fun. So the amount of learning and being able to develop your game is it's almost impossible, because you're not able to get on facilities then when you want. So the only way you're able to train is if you go off of school campus and find a park maybe to train in, which in Philly, in a city, I mean, impossible. And so you can't get on any of the facilities because other teams are on them. So you only have your hour to train, so you can't work on anything. So how are you supposed to develop to be a better player? So that's why it's if you end up out of college as a professional player, I mean, it's amazing because of all the time you actually lost. And then if you're not playing in the summer, like in a PDL, for example, then that's even more time lost. So I'm a huge fan of I'm thankful for PDL in the summer because they were actually better than my Temple team because that helped me develop even more. But not everybody does that, and it's just a lot of time lost.
Yeah, I could not agree more with all of that. I think the biggest crime is the spring season. I think it's
ridiculous.
I don't want to kind of shit on the NCAA too much because who knows, I might have a job in the NCAA one day.
Yeah.
But what the spring season is for college soccer players is a joke. Between even if you're at a school like Binghamton, like I know Temple's in the city, Binghamton, we could go to local parks. I mean, we could train on our field on our own pretty much the whole spring as long as we just worked it out with lacrosse because we don't have a football team. But the fact that they limit us up until like March to 2 hours on the field.
Yeah.
And then after March, it's like, I think it's like 8 or what. It's a small number and it's not enough. And it's just so against
2 or 3 games. Like it's not beneficial for those that want to pursue soccer after,
Absolutely not. I think there's a place for it. And I think it was a good experience for me, but if I didn't play PDL in the summer, there's no chance I'd be a professional player.
I 100% agree. And I like I said, I wouldn't go back and change anything. Like I loved going to college. It was fantastic 4 years. But in terms of soccer development, it definitely could have been more beneficial, if the structure were a little different.
Yeah. The latest guest we had on, or 2 guests ago, when this post was Jeff Cameron. One of the things he kind of regrets about his career, not regrets, but he wonders, he's like, what if I came over to England at 16 or 18? He's had a fantastic career.
He's played like I saw your thing, like 3rd or 4th most in the Prem in games.
Yeah, second most for outfield players. And his question, even him, and he came over when he was, I want to say 25, something like that. His question is, where would I be if I came over at 18? And it speaks a lot to the system in the U.S. But I guess we can go on this tangent forever. If you guys want to stop by Gold's Gym, LaGrange, the net training facility, we can have a long talk about it next off season. Scotty will have his input, I'm sure, too. But before we kind of close out, I have one final question for you, and then we'll do a little kind of joke question. So one final real question, then I'll throw some jokes at you.
All right.
We'll get a good laugh. So the final question is, like, where do you see your career going? What are your goals for the next 5, 10, however many years you want to play? Do you have goals in your mind? Do you want to go abroad eventually? Just what do you got?
So they're very broad and not very to the point. But like I think for myself now and seeing how the game is in terms of going over to Europe, that's all, that'd be fantastic. But seeing how I'm 25 now and I'm not 16, 17, 18, to be able to go over there and play in a great league and obviously make good money, it would be very tough. But obviously I think it's a lot of soccer. There's a lot of politics involved, and it's a lot of who and getting opportunities. So obviously I'm still I'm getting to the prime of my career. Making it to the MLS would be, I think, like the pinnacle for me right now. Would be something fantastic, which I think is achievable. It obviously takes hard work, but like I said, there's a lot of guys in the USL that have had great stats that haven't gotten chances in the MLS. And I think there could be a lot of interchange in terms of like the middle half of players in the MLS to the better half in the USL could definitely swap a little bit. And I'm not sure that MLS and USL does great at giving opportunities to these players in the USL maybe, but I mean that's off on a tangent. But my goal would be to make it in the MLS, and that's obviously a goal that I'm going to strive for. But I honestly, as I get older now, I've had moments in the past 2 years that were tough playing, and I'm focusing on enjoying it a lot as well. I want to make sure I'm enjoying my playing because obviously, it's a thing that not many people get to do. So living in the moment, being able to, continue to enjoy it. That's obviously the biggest part. We're not doing it for the money in the USL. Otherwise we wouldn't be playing. So I still do it because I love it. And so I want to make sure that stays there, even if I don't make it to the MLS.
Yeah. One thing I was actually thinking about, I'm a little bit older than you, but one thing I was thinking about recently was like, someone asked, how many more years are you going to play? And I was like, the answer can be anywhere from 1 to 6. And for you, it can be one.
You'll be playing till your legs fall off. And,
I'll try. But the same for you. Like it won't happen. But theoretically, if you have a shit year this year, you very well could be done just because of how the USL is and how contracts are and things are. Players are in and out all the time. Yeah. And it's such an unstable business.
But I'll be brutally honest. There are some places in the USL, and this is, I don't want to shit on the league, but there are some places where you would not want to play. Not just because, not location I'm talking about, but how players get treated all around in terms of looked after, the places they put you up into living. I mean, some places aren't worth it. So you really, if it gets to that point where we have our degrees where we could pursue something else, you know, kind of make that next stage. Like you said, it could be next year, it could be 10 years. You really don't know.
Yeah, we'll be playing for the Hudson Valley Hammers in no time.
Yeah. If Tyler Adams gives us these $1 million contracts.
Yeah, at least a Nike deal or something. But what is something you're gonna do? You're looking to do after you finish playing?
So, I mean, isn't that the question for everybody? No, but as I was a kinesiology major at Temple, so obviously we've talked about I love lifting weights, love exercise, things like that. So something along those lines in terms of I think I do love the game, like staying involved in the game. I think being able to help younger players in terms of like teenagers getting into college, helping them develop physically, you know, mentally, like that in soccer as well, could be something huge. So honestly, maybe something like the net, not necessarily like the net, but some sort of facility for training players as well as training them physically. It's all very tentative though, like with the league where you're bouncing from place to place every 2 years, you know, it's not very beneficial to be able to start something up or try to. So we'll see. Hopefully I've got a lot more years before I need to figure it out.
If we're in the same place, let's collaborate, because I would like to do something like that too. I'd like to have like a kitchen, a gym area, not like a normal gym, but a gym area for serious athletes, like the elite group in that, which is like sled pushes and things like that. And then have a field indoor.
Exactly, because like we know the two of us, like we're not 9 to 5 people, for example. So I'm not going to go get a desk job. Some people are, and that's completely fine. But I'm too jittery. Like I couldn't do it. I just mentally couldn't do it. So I'll need to be active, doing something that's, you know, moving around.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Let's start a business. We'll call it
Aristocrat
MJ or MJ. We'll call it MJ.
There you go. I'm in.
But so to finish off, we're just gonna have a couple questions for you, just for the boys. So at the net training, we didn't train as much this year because of COVID and because you left early. But we're gonna say the three big outside of ourselves, the 5 group is you, me, Scott Zobre, who I played with at Binghamton, Mike Corby, who he's played overseas in Sweden and in Germany. He's won the league in Sweden and in Germany, lower leagues, but he's done very well. And then Dylan Williams, who's now in the Regionalliga in Germany, which is the 4th tier, which is a very good level. So just to introduce the 3 other guys. So we're not going to count ourselves in this, but when we do one-on-one drills as a defender, Scotty, Dylan, and Mike Corby are all attacking players. Yeah. Rate them 1 to 3. Who do you least want to face?
So 1 being the least or 1 being the easiest?
We'll say 1 will be the guy you absolutely don't want to go against.
All right. You know what? I'll be honest. I'll go Dylan. Dylan is a very shifty player. And then I'll go Corby, and I got to put Scotty last. But Scotty, you never know though, because Scotty's the king of, he'll dribble at you, he'll kick the ball off your shins, it'll hit his shins, and he'll be past you. That is Scotty's move to a T.
And we'll give Scotty some due here. He's an absolute legend. He's like 32. He plays for Kingston Stockade in the NPSL, but they haven't had a season in like 2 years. Like he's just doing it for the fun of it, and he holds his own with us. So he's an absolute legend. He brings the music,
good banter as well. Brings the music.
Yeah, he brings the banter. But I mean, I think we take so much pride in that group. Like that's the main 5. But like we've had tons of college players. We've had Kyle Murphy was there, who's in Tampa Bay. We've had Tyler Adams there. We've had David and Cabal, who they both on the Maris. We have Maris kids. Like we've had a really good group over the years. We even had a couple Division I women's players.
Yeah.
So we take such pride in that off-season training, and I think it really helps us all kind of build and improve, and then eventually when the season comes around, really have success.
For sure.
But we'll have to reacquaint sometime. Hopefully soon. Hopefully next year without masks.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can train with masks anymore. I'm sorry.
No, definitely neither, man. It's brutal.
I just can't do it. But thank you, Matt, so much for coming on. Do you have any last words? Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to share with our loyal viewers? Do you want to say anything to Dave or Marion for not showing up for your podcast? Because it's poor form, if you ask me.
It is poor form. I mean, they were probably there for Jeff Cameron's. Were they not?
Dave was there. Marion just doesn't come to any episodes.
So
she's only there for Marion's only here for her looks, I guess. So.
No, just thanks for hopping on. I know we're boys for a long time, so I appreciate this. Yeah, that's it, man. Thank you.
All right, follow Matt. We'll get Matt's Instagram. We normally do it on the YouTube. We'll share his Instagram. Follow him. He has a lot of followers, big following. What do you have, like 9,000, something like that?
No, not 9,000.
8,000?
I got the no. It's been declined. I've got a blue check though. That's all that matters, right?
All right, well, the blue check. Okay, he doesn't have 9,000. I was way off. Sorry, but thanks so much, Matt. It's great catching up. We'll chat throughout the season as we always do. But best of luck in Colorado. Tell Brendan would have loved to join you too, but no hard feelings. But until next time, everyone. I'm the athlete, the advocate, and the analyst are not here. Until next time, I'm the athlete, and we are the Aristocrats. I couldn't even say it properly.